Hello, this is Blaine Moore from RunToWin.com, and today I'd like to tell you about the Delaware Marathon. I had decided to run that when I was going to be down at the RRCA National Convention, because I figured if I'm going to be away from my wife for a week, I might as well get a new state out of the way. And it was a choice between Delaware or the Bob Potts Marathon in York, Pennsylvania. So I decided to run Delaware, which is rather humorous because the person I wound up sharing a hotel room was from Delaware and normally works at the Delaware Marathon, but instead he came down to Fredericksburg while I drove up and ran in Delaware that day. But the morning started 3 o'clock in the morning. I was out the door of the hotel. It took me about 3 hours to drive up to the race. I parked about 3/4 of a mile away from the start-finish area, which provided a nice little walk, and jog that I could use as a warm-up and cool-down before and after the race, since I went back and forth quite a few times. The organization of this race is really good. It's a 2-loop course, but there's a bunch of different events going on. They have a marathon relay, and a half marathon that all happen at the same time, but the courses aren't exactly the same. Now, at no point was I confused about where I was supposed to go. I assume it was the same for the people in the other races as well. But I have no idea how the courses actually came together or split apart or how any of that worked, other than in the start-finish transition area between loops. There was really just a lot of people in front of me that I wasn't expecting, or some people coming from different directions at various points. Despite being a 2-loop course, I didn't actually mind it too much, because first, the loops are pretty big. It is 13-mile loops, and then second, there was a lot of varying terrain as you ran through. Now, the entire thing was on the roads, but you had this brick walkway that went along the riverfront. You had some areas where there were some not huge, but definitely sizable hills that you got to climb up and then later come down through. There was a lot of places where you were running in the opposite direction as some other people, or you were on different sides of a large grassy median. So you got to see a lot of people while you were running that were in different areas of the race than you were. But other than, I think, 1 or 2 points, all of those places where you're going back and forth crosswise from somebody else, you actually had a big loop to run, and then you would come back through. So it wasn't, there weren't any cones to go around other than right after the start-finish between loops. You had one out and back that you needed to do. For my own race, I was just planning to run somewhere in the 3:15 to 3:30 range. It was, I met a lot of great people on the course while I was running, so I would run along with them for a little while. And then about 10, 11 miles in, I saw my friend Larry Macon, who had started with the early start. So when I caught up to him, I slowed down and ran and walked at his pace for 2.5 miles, which led to 1:54 for my half marathon split. But that was okay, because I was having fun, had some great conversation, and then it actually worked out because I got my biggest negative split that I've ever gotten. I ran an hour 36 for my second half of the race for 3.5 hour overall time. Once the race ended, they had a large hospitality tent where you could get water, vitamin water, bagels, bananas, bags of pretzels, and they had some cold pizza, and the best part was that they had soft pretzels in the hospitality tent, which I'm a big soft pretzel fan, so even cold, they were really good, and the pretzel and salt just hit the spot, so I was very happy to see that. So I basically just hung around there for a little while, waited for it was a little bit humid, so I waited till I stopped sweating and made my way back to the car. I discovered that parking in front of a children's museum is not necessarily the best place to give yourself a baby wipe bath before making your way to an airport, but all in all, it worked out fine. I had about a 2.5 hour drive right after the race to get back to DC so I could fly home. So it was a real short trip into Delaware, but it was well worth it. I had a lot of fun. Kudos to the race organizers. They did a really good job. About the only real complaint I had was that there were a few intersections where they could have used a course marshal just to help make sure that the runners didn't get hit by traffic. And Didn't look like there was any real problems there, but I could definitely see where there could have been. The only place where I had any trouble with traffic was actually from a car cutting across the cones into the runner's lane and not bothering to look to see if I was there first. But there was a course marshal at that point, and she managed to get the car stopped and yelled at the guy for not looking. So I appreciate her for that. But if you get a chance, I'd definitely recommend Delaware. It was a fun course. I enjoyed it a lot. So if you'd like to see more race reports similar to this one, then just visit my site at runtowin.com, and until next time, I will talk to you later.